Hey, what's happening guys? Welcome back to the workshop. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make one of these silver rings with Hawaiian Koa wood and a blue opal inlay. This was a hella nice piece of jewelry to make, so if you like it, then give it a thumbs up and leave me comments with any questions and I'll do my best to answer them. And of course, if you want to help out the channel, then please subscribe and ring that bell for notifications. Another way you can help the channel out is by checking out Skillshare.com. So Skillshare is a website where you get access to like over 20,000 classes online, and they range from everything from graphic design to creative business kind of stuff. And I've actually been taking a lot of classes recently on photography and silversmithing. So if you want to check that out, then you can get 2 months for free. So you have absolutely nothing to lose, and then after that it goes up to about $15 per month. So check out Skillshare, use the link in the description, and you will get 2 months absolutely free where you can take as many classes as you like. Let's get on with the video, bro. So this ring started life as a strip of 925 sterling silver, and the first thing to do was some maths. So, to figure out exactly how much silver I needed to cut, I did this equation where you take the inner diameter of the desired size, add the thickness of the silver, and then times that by 3.14, which is pi, and that gave me 65.186 millimeters. The next thing I did was scored a line on my silver with a caliper, and then used a jewellery saw to cut out my strip of silver. The next thing to do was to prepare the ring for soldering, so I took a file and filed down both of the edges that I just cut, and then used pliers, half round nose pliers to be exact, to get the ring into a rough shape ready for soldering. So I just kind of made it so that both of those edges would fit together in a rough ring shape, and then so that the seam would fit together nicely, I just ran a saw blade right down the middle of the seam, and that left me with a nice little blank ready for soldering. Sweet! So soldering is the most fun part of the process, and basically before I began this, I bathed it in a pickle solution and then neutralized the pickle with baking soda. And then all I did was applied a bit of soldering flux and a few tiny bits of easy silver solder onto the seam, and then I just attacked it with a blowtorch. I heated the ring up evenly and then saw the flux kind of froth up, and then after the flux froths it kind of melts down into like a puddle, and that's the point when you start to kind of focus the flame onto the seam, and then you'll see all that solder melt down into a puddle. And hopefully, if you get it right, it runs down into the seam and forms a really nice solder join. So after that soldered flowed nicely, I just let the ring to cool down, and then I hammered it out to a rough ring shape with a rawhide hammer on a metal mandrel, just to kind of bring it to look like a ring instead of a melted piece of metal. So yeah, hammered it out and then pickled him for probably about half an hour to an hour, and then I was left with this, which is quite a nice looking little silver ring blank. The next thing to do was to clean that up to make it look a bit more presentable. So I used a few grits of sandpaper on my bench, and then used some files and some filing to bring it to a nice pre-finish. And then, because this ring was meant to be an 8mm wide, I used a caliper to score a line so that it was marked at 8mm, obviously. Then I took my saw and sawed off the excess. So I found the best way to do this was actually to like put it onto the mandrel and then use my bench peg to saw that down. And then I just moved on to pre-finishing basically. So I took a few grits of sandpaper, worked on the inside tapers, worked over the seam, made sure it was scratch free. And eventually I was left with a really nice looking silver ring blank, ready for me to wrap some wood around. So to make the wooden portion of this ring, I had a beautiful piece of Hawaiian Koa wood, which is rare, but really, really nice. So I cut a strip of that using just a craft knife and a metal ruler. And then I took one end of the strip and sanded that down so that it was as thin as paper. And then when I'd done that, I just slowly dunked that bit of wood into some water, just cold water, and left it for probably about 20 minutes before taking it out. And then I wrapped the wood around like a fat socket and secured that with a bit of masking tape, and then just allowed that to dry so that it would like train the wood to stay in a round ring shape. In the trade they call this the bent wood method, and it basically makes like a super strong wooden ring. After allowing that wood to dry for a few hours, I test wrapped it around my silver ring and then cut off like the excess so that I was left with 2 layers of wood around the outside of the ring. And then I just started gluing it all together. So I used super glue, which is cyanoacrylate glue, and I basically worked my way around like centimetre at a time, applying a little bit of glue to the wood and then sticking it down to the wooden ring until, like I said, I had 2 wrapped up layers of wood around my silver ring. And then I just sanded off the edges on my bench with a bit of sandpaper, and I was left with this. Alright, what's next? Inlays. So I cut an inlay channel by marking a line with my marking gauge, and then I was sitting down and I was enjoying listening to an audiobook. So I actually cut the inlay for this one by hand with a triangle file. So started with the triangle file. You could probably do this on the lathe, with metal lathe, wood lathe, with a parting tool, whatever you want. But I was just enjoying my book, so I wanted to sit down and enjoy it. And then I cut 2 other lines next to that and just used a sharp craft knife to carve out an inlay channel. There's probably people screaming at their screens right now going, "Why don't you just put it on the lathe?" But honestly, I was totally engrossed and I just couldn't turn the book off. So yeah, anyway, I carved an inlay channel which was nice and deep, and then I started working on my inlay. So for this inlay, I was given some opal by the opaldealer.com, the Opal Dealer on Instagram. Check them out. Absolutely amazing materials. And I was basically split this into larger chunks and dust that I'd mixed with a bit of blue pigment. And so what I started doing, I did it in 3 stages basically. The first stage was to fill the inlay channel with like the finer dust, just to give it like a bit of a base. So I put in a few globs of glue and then spooned some of that dust into there. And then for the second stage, I inlaid the larger bits. So I just used the same technique, applied a bit of glue, and then pressed the ring into the big chunks of opal. And I was left with that. And then for the third stage, I just went back over with the final dust, the finer dust, just to fill in any gaps. So it was like a 3-stage inlay. and my book was awesome the entire time. I was actually listening to I Am Legend, and it was amazing. Couldn't turn it off. But there you go. There's the ring with the inlay in it. So it's a bit messy, obviously. So the next thing to do was to clean that up, which I did with a diamond tip file on my lathe. And then I moved on to a few grits of sandpaper, took it up to like a 12,000 grit, and applied a bit of sanding sealer over the top to have a look what that finish was going to look like. And oh my god, look at those fires. Hell yeah. I needed to protect the wood from the elements, so I used CA finish, cyanoacrylate finish, which is super glue. Lots of people use UV resins, which is absolutely fine, or there's probably epoxy resins that could do this, or even just an oiled finish, but I like CA glue. It's glassy, provides excellent protection, is durable, is waterproof, and I've just had lots of practice at applying it. So I just applied 8 layers to every surface, like the edges and the outside of the ring. And in between every coat, I used an activator spray. And then I was left with this. So the outside of the ring was now coated in CA glue. And from there, I just moved over to the final polishing stage. So to taper the inside edges of the silver ring and polish the outside of the CA, I just mounted the ring in some my chuck jaws, pin jaws on the chuck, and sanded them there. And then I did the same thing for the outside on a spindle, and I just worked up to a 1200 grit sandpaper before burnishing the outside with Chestnut Products burnishing cream. And it left me with this super shiny, beautiful finish, which I was very impressed with. And then for the inside of the silver, I'd already sort of like sanded it up to a really high kind of 2000 grit. So I just took 2 polishing compounds, Tripoli and Rouge, and just worked those in with my rotary tool just to bring out a really beautiful shine in the silver. And that's it. That's the finished ring on my dodgy turntable, which isn't straight at all. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions, leave me a comment. Like I said, subscribe, helps out the channel, and get 2 free months membership on Skillshare. So until I see you in the next one, go and check out some more of my videos. They should pop up on the screen. Click through and enjoy.